Hello, this is Pastor Rick, and I want to welcome you to the special edition, the Table Talk edition of the Sunday Forum for this Sunday, November the 12th, where we have this really intriguing topic, and we're going to label this near-death experiences or life after death. Near-death experience or life after death. Are they different or are they the same? This Sunday Forum Table Talk is another in our series of movie reviews. As you remember, we've taken a look at Barbie, at Oppenheimer, and Sound of Freedom. And this week, we're also taking a look at a movie, After Death, another movie from Angel Studios, where they talk about all these near-death experiences. It's a documentary, really, where they take interviews and put them together of people who have experienced, well, they've had these powerful spiritual experiences. And that's the question. Are they near-death experiences? Are they actually dead and then experiencing life after death? Those are the questions that this movie raises up. It's told through the lens of a scientist, a cardiologist, who's both curious and skeptical, and he puts then all these interviews together and he asks hosts of questions. But the purpose of the movie also is a bit evangelistic. They recognize that more and more people do not believe in life after death, and they hope that this movie will be a catalyst for that conversation, both in society at large, in the church, and in our families. And so we want to get started like the film got started, by defining an NDE, a near-death experiences. And here's the definition from Webster. A near-death experience is an occurrence in which a person comes very close to dying and has memories of a spiritual experience during the time when death was near. And so here, again, we face the first conundrum, and the movie lifts it up. And the movie does not answer this question. I think it keeps it fuzzy. Are the people who are being interviewed experiencing near-death experiences, so they don't die, it's a near-death experience, or have they died and they've experienced then life after death, and then they come back to tell us the stories? It's fuzzy in the film, and that's one of the benefits of going to see the film, is to raise up some of these questions that we rarely talk about in the church. What are we hearing? What are we experiencing? And what does that say about our Christian theology? And that's what happens when we hear all these various interviews, these riveting tales of people and how they died. That's the way they tell the story, that they were clinically pronounced dead. And then all through, again, the eyes of this scientist, who again is intrigued. He's skeptical, but always intrigued by the stories. He then keeps saying, okay, after this story, what are the questions that are raised? What are the new questions that are raised? And he's a good storyteller as he puts then all these stories together for us. Now, before we describe anything more about this movie documentary, I think we need to show now a video clip so you can get an idea of this movie documentary, Afterlife. Let's take a look at a short clip right now.
It was 1969, a beautiful day to fly. We were about 100 feet above the ground when I started noticing that something was wrong. It was engine failure. Trees were filling our windshield. I found myself above the crash site. And while I'm processing what I'm looking at, I could see a pilot, and this is me.
No two near-death experiences are the same.
Out of nowhere, a trailer truck hit me head-on. But
They typically occur in a very consistent process.
We began to go down the river, and my boat became pinned. I was drowning.
The first thing that happens is called an out-of-body experience.
And they come to a place of exquisite beauty.
They very commonly see a light. Deceased relatives come to meet them.
The first person I saw was my grandfather. Now I'm traveling like a rocket ship, straight upwards. And with that,
Oh my God, I'm alive. But not every near-death experience is a good one. 23% had hellish experiences.
I saw a black tunnel. He's just falling. I wasn't in fear, I was in terror.
It was just darkness.
Put me back. I don't belong here.
I heard a voice before I woke up.
You still have a purpose on earth.
I was very skeptical.
I never felt alive and then dead. I felt alive and then more alive.
I had full brain recordings from the dying human brain.
Even though they were unconscious, they were able to give corroborative evidence.
She's describing stuff that she just shouldn't know. This ain't right.
You can't be mystified by that question. What happens after you die?
This really does show that there is life after death.
Okay, you could sense from that clip that this is an intriguing movie documentary. And like I said, when you go to see it, and I would encourage you to go to see it, it raises many questions up that we just don't often talk about, like the immortality of the soul. Do Christians believe that the soul is immortal? And the answer to that is definitely, we don't know. It's fuzzy. Some Christians do believe in the immortality of the soul, even officially, like the Roman Catholic Church. Protestants are a bit divided on the issue. We like to talk more about resurrection, which is the soul and the body together as being a person. But talking about the soul running around without the body, well, you'll get various opinions in the Protestant church. In fact, even to define what is a soul, can we do that religiously? And that comes out in this film. What can science tell us about life after death? And what can religion tell us about life after death, about the immortality of the soul, or what is the soul? Those are some important questions, but also a near-death experience. Is that tied to a certain natural process in the mind? That when you experience this, all of a sudden you have a spiritual experience, which might be your own experience, but is also unique, about seeing light and feeling love, maybe even seeing loved ones. People tell about these stories all the time, when they almost get in an accident and life then just goes before their eyes, and their experience, it becomes a religious experience. Is that what we're talking about? Or have these people that are documented in the film actually experienced death and life after death? That they've been in the presence of God? Again, the film raises up the questions and doesn't really answer them. That keeps them hanging in the air for us then to debate. And also, are these near-death experiences or life after death, does this correspond to what science is telling us? After all, it's the scientists who are collecting the stories. Or does our Christian faith tell us a different story about what happens after death? For example, in Hebrews 9:27, we read that just as people are destined to die once, and after that, they face the judgment, and it goes on to describe that. So Hebrews seems to describe a Christian position that you die and then comes judgment. It's a different story, really, than the one told in the movie, although there are some similarities. We even know that Paul, in 2 Corinthians, describes his experience of going to the third heaven. What was that vision? What was that experience? What is he describing? It seems so strange from our everyday religious experiences here. Finally, I'll close with this. These near-death experiences have always been recognized. They're rare, but they've always been recognized. In the 19th century, in fact, there was a famous physician who, after someone had died and were buried, they'd hook that body up, the cadaver, to strings on their fingers, their arms, even their neck, and that string would go up through the ground to a bell above the grave. So just in case they had only experienced a near-death experience, or maybe it's resurrection, that's what we talk about, death and then resurrection, like Jesus experienced, whatever it was, they could be saved by the bell. That's where that phrase comes from, saved by the bell. And so we always wrestle with these experiences. How do we distinguish near-death experiences from life after death, from resurrection? How do we understand what people have always wrestled with? What is it to experience life after death? Go to see the film, and we can discuss it more here at church. So thanks for joining us on this special edition of the Table Talks, the Sunday Forum edition. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye now.